Hey everybody, welcome to this episode. I've got some very explosive details from some of the rumors that came out this weekend about the state of Xi Jinping's control on power or the lack of power. And that is, let's first dive into what happened. So apparently, according to multiple sources that I could find, as well as that's been told to me, the Politburo, which is basically like the top echelon of the CCP, held an emergency meeting, but this time it was an extended membership meeting, meaning that not just the members of the Politburo, but former members, elders, senior retired officials. It was a very expanded and extended entry for some of the most important people in the CCP to come in together, and they had one topic to discuss, according to the rumor, which was, will Xi Jinping step down? If so, completely, partial, or whatnot? And so this was the content of this meeting. And even former General Secretary Hu Jintao, who, of course, if you remember in this video, that was taken at the 20th Party Congress, which was in 2022, he was escorted out per the order of Xi Jinping. He apparently even came out to give a speech. And obviously here, he's not going to go back to power. It's a very apparent situation where multiple different factions within the party are trying to divide up the power, like a mafia, right? You know, the Don dies, and then you have to, get your little piece of the pie. You got to get your power, right? You have to divide that. So that's the situation right now. Now, is this rumor solid, or is it even close to being true? Well, I believe the essence of it, this idea that we're getting closer and closer to a full reveal of what happens to Xi Jinping in the near future is, I believe, very much on the true side, simply because we know that the fourth plenum, which is a meeting, happens, usually it's supposed to take place a few months after the third, which happened last summer, but because of different pushbacks and whatnot, we expect it to take place this summer, so within a month or two. And what's going to happen is in this plenum, which usually is dictated towards policies and economic works, is going to be purely about personnel changes, right? So will we see Xi Jinping remain as the general secretary or the chairman of the party, or will he completely, retire? But what we do know is something that I'll also talk about today is that his military position is 100% gone and is probably going to be revealed to be somebody else. And that's very important, right? Because without the military control in the CCP, you're effectively a figurehead and somebody else is more powerful than you. So the idea of this report or this rumor is, I think, in general, very true. Now, there's something very important here to note. We're not saying that the future of China is so much brighter now that Xi Jinping is gone. We're not saying that, right? Because the party itself is still in control. We're saying that they've removed I guess you could say, this idea of a cult of personality or one-man rule or this Maoist type of leadership. But it doesn't mean that the CCP is going to get better, right? Unless, of course, they decide that whoever wants to come next is somebody that is willing to revolutionize within the party and to, completely abandon the system. Which actually brings me to an important point, because I don't think anyone in the party right now wants to take over the mess that has been created by Xi Jinping over the last 10 years, whether that's the international relationships, whether that's the economy, whether that's the social resentments, or whether that's exacerbating, some of the extreme aspects in China that previous, leaders didn't do or was hiding, at least. Militarization, right? The aggression towards Taiwan. So who wants to be the guy that takes over from this? And honestly, unless they want to do a 180 change, it's very difficult for people, right, to trust China again, which is, I think it's where it is now. So with that line of thinking, I'll tell you about the second sort of rumor, which before we continue with more information, make sure you're subscribed to the channel if you haven't already and click the notification, because we have to continuously follow the development of what happens to Xi Jinping's power as we approach the all-important deadline, which is the fourth plenum. So click that subscribe button and let's continue, which is actually, I got this from a friend, and he revealed it to multiple of us creators about this. And he basically said that he has a friend in China. So what that means is Zhang Youxia is the vice chair of the Central Military Commission. And if you've seen my previous videos, you'll know that Zhang Youxia is actually the one that's calling the shot in the military. And he says, so this is the information that we got. Zhang Youxia, at the beginning of last year, so January of 2024, was ready to face his downfall. And he was ready to be purged from that position by Xi Jinping, which I believe that's the person that they're talking about. Well, by the summer of 2024, Zhang's family house was hosting people and having these big events every single night. So what happened? Well, like I mentioned, Xi Jinping, the only way that he loses power is health issues, right? That's the only thing that they cannot stop. Coups or, people, personnel, all of these can be solved with violence or other means except for health, right? You cannot stop somebody. Like Mao Zedong's Cultural Revolution didn't end until he died. That's just simply how the system works, right? Stalin's purge, his Stalinization didn't end until after he died. That's just how things are. So health issues, and that's actually the reason why Xi Jinping has lost power, because in the summer of last year, he suffered a stroke, and that's when the opposition seized control and basically, took power from him, right? So since then, the military control has been given to Zhang Youxia. So this guy effectively went from almost losing his career and potentially his life to, by the 6 months later, becoming the core of this anti-Xi personnel faction. And actually in this Chinese prediction called a back pushing picture or Tui Bei Tu, there's one where I think I've done a video on this actually. I talked about how within one of the chapters it says, army officer carries a bull and says, I am a white-headed man. Okay, so the bull is actually one of the characters in Chinese writing, and it's part of my last name because me and Zhang Youxia have the same last name, right? So in the Zhang, one part of it is the bull. So one of the interpretation, at least, of this is that Xi Jinping's downfall will be because somebody with a bull in their last name characters. And obviously, Zhang Youxia is a military officer. He's actually the vice chair. And so Xi Jinping's downfall is because of Zhang, which actually kind of makes sense now if you think about the rumor, right? And then the second line of that prediction says, the eastern door carries a golden sword hidden, and warrior enters the palace from the back door. So again, that sounds like a coup or like a takeover to me, right? So if you read the two lines together, it sounds like a military officer carries a bull who points directly at this white-headed man, which is some people believe is Xi Jinping, and that he had already set up this sort of a hidden sword trap, and he enters through the back door into the palace, right? The palace being, this idea of the Xi Empire, which is very interesting. So adding that to our first rumor, which, by the way, one detail I forgot to mention is that some of the Xi Jinping's former faction members, like the Politburo members, they all declare that they're now against him. People like He Lifeng, people like Wang Yi, these are people that you actually have seen, right? The guy who went to negotiate the trade deal and the wolf warrior diplomat. And you can also see some other circumstantial evidence. I always point to this video here, is a comparison between, in a meeting in 2024, you see Xi Jinping walk by, Zhang Youxia is very much patiently waiting to greet him, to, patiently looking at the leader walk by. A year later, 2025, same meeting, Xi Jinping walks by, Zhang Youxia doesn't even turn around, and he's basically ignoring Xi Jinping. That is very abnormal, right? That is extremely abnormal. You don't do that to the CCP leader who, one word and he could be gone, which again aligns with our timeline of what happened to Zhang's family. And also another point is that this is again a picture from 2024. This is him in a suit, which is very, very odd for members of the the vice chair of the military commission to do. He's usually in his military uniform. So it also again was interpreted as a point of him showing his he's bowing down to Xi, right? He's showing his I'm not trying to threaten you type of message. So at this point, you might be wondering, well, wasn't it, a year ago, we were talking about Xi Jinping purging all of these people, right? He purged Qin Gang, the former foreign minister. He purged Li Shangfu, the former defense minister. And then he purged another defense minister. And then, he got rid of the rocket force and all of these other generals. What happened? Well, actually, now that you think this way, you're on the right track, because all of those people, the purges, eventually was going to lead to Zhang Youxia, which is the guy that knew he was going to lose, his power, his job in the beginning of 2024, right? It was getting to him. But now look what happens. All of the personnel after the summer of last year have been Xi Jinping's close confidants, people like Mao Hua, political commissar, He Weidong, the second vice chair. All of these people were Xi Jinping's own people that he put into place. And so basically the purges that happened before the summer of 2024 and the purges that happened after summer of 2024, they're by very different people. And so that leads me to our last sort of rumor slash information today, which is the apparent death or slash offing himself of the deputy political commissar of the People's Liberation Army, aka the deputy of Mao Hua, who was recently purged as well. So the rumor says that he tried to off himself and he succeeded. So why does this guy matter to us? Well, basically, again, this is the guy that Xi Jinping put into place himself. He's going to succeed Mao Hua because Mao Hua was about to retire at the age of 68, I believe. And so this guy had no reason to off himself, right? But he did. Now, you have to understand, within the CCP's interrogation system, if they're interrogated or arrested, they're not given a chance to off themselves because, for one, they put the room that they're designed in is effectively like where they store mental patients, right? So there's no sharp edges, there's no extra furnitures, even the pins that they're given. If you look at some of the old videos of CCP officials that have been purged, right? The pins even they give them are like not sharp enough for them to, attack themselves with it. So for him to say that he offed himself, that's impossible. But also the second is, was he, tortured to death, right? It's very unlikely because the people that are doing this type of job, they know the limits. So what likely happened was he was probably, he was ordered to be disappeared forever, in the sense that what happened after the June sort of switch of purges was that obviously Xi Jinping lost his power of the military, but he still wanted things back. So perhaps he tried to, fight back, and maybe he tried to take back his power. Perhaps that means he lost the battle, and so a lot of the people that are now, off themselves, or people that are gone forever, they're no longer around because, well, they were punished for helping Xi trying to take back power. That's very possible. This guy's often could be one of them. And so I think it's very interesting that we're hearing more and more of these information or rumors. The longer you hear these rumors, the more truth it comes out, right? So as we get closer to the summer, you're going to hear more about this. As we've covered, there's a lot of these letters as well, just basically openly criticizing Xi Jinping, which again is not something that he could do, in the past, right? And but the key reason here is that the future of the CCP is uncertain, and is not something that we're going to be cheering for, unless, of course, they decide to abandon the entire system. All right, that's it today for the coverage of what really developed over the weekend. If you enjoy the content, let me know your thoughts in the comment as well. If you think what I said is true or not, or maybe you have your own assessment, love to hear that. Like this video if you haven't already, and subscribe as well. All right, until next time, bye-bye.